Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Civivi Yonder, designed by Zac Whitmore, also known as Zac in the Wild. You're probably familiar with his channel, or you're probably familiar with him because he has a long history in the knife world. I remember the first time seeing Zac was on Blade HQ's channel, and I miss you on Blade HQ's channel, Zac. But I also really like the content that he currently makes on YouTube. Some of the better stuff that we see on YouTube, honestly. And so it's really cool that he designed his own knife. He's very hands-on, very active, somebody who uses a knife a lot. Me, myself, you guys know me as a design reviewer, not quite as hardcore as Zac, but I wanted to take a look at this and carry it and experience it and give you guys my thoughts. And it turns out it's pretty cool. I mean, you look at it and it's like, it's a real basic, straightforward knife, but that's what he wanted to make, a knife that was essentially a knife that could work for just about anybody. He's actually got a pretty good lore video on this on his channel. You guys can check it out if you want to for all of the little teeny tiny details. I do recommend that you do that. Thanks so much to Civivi for sending this in. I will absolutely link this knife down in the description. Spoiler alert, I'm going to recommend it because it's good and it's very inexpensive. But I'll link it down in the description so you guys can check it out if you want to. It does help my channel and use those links, but that's up to you. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Let's go ahead and get a measurement on this knife. So the overall length of the Yonder is coming in at 6.5 inches, which I got to say is actually smaller than I thought. I'm aware that it's a small knife, but in my brain, like if you told me like that's a 6.5 inch knife, I'm like, no, it's bigger than that. Something about the presence of this knife, it's when it's deployed right in the pocket, it definitely feels like a small, lightweight, compact knife, like in the most convenient way possible. But when it's deployed, the presence or maybe just the general utility of it, sometimes knives feel larger than they are in a good way, right? So that's actually a little surprising, but I never measure these until I actually get down to the review because I want to just experience the thing while I'm carrying it. 6.5 inches. And then we have a 2.85 inch blade with 2.75 inches of cutting edge. This is really good for people who travel a lot. Like within the United States, I don't know about laws outside the United States, but if you live inside the USA and you're traveling a lot, this is the type of knife that will likely not get you in trouble almost anywhere because it's under 3 inches, like definitively under 3 inches. And that's great. Whenever I travel, I try to carry a smaller pocket knife with me. So I'm always trying to maximize the amount of utility while minimizing the size and obviously trying to stay under that 3 inch mark. It's not a problem here in Kansas, but we're definitely traveling to states sometimes that are not super fond of pocket knives in general. So if you're, I don't like to travel without a knife. So that sub 3 inch rule is something that I try to apply while I'm traveling. So that is cool. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others up against the 8010 and the 8020.5. The knife is on the smaller side. It does have a pretty good amount of cutting edge. It's worth pointing out that it's not too far off from the substantially larger AD20.5. So definitely noteworthy there. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Closer in size to the Para 3, but much smaller. But once again, identical actually in terms of cutting edge. And then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How's the action on this knife? Has Civivi ever done a crossbar lock before? That was my question. It turns out no, they haven't. It was a weird, like, Mandela effect with me. I was like, yes, they have. They have the... and I just sat there, unable to come up. I was so certain. I watched this video, and he was like, it's the first time they've done a crossbar lock. And I was like, what do you mean, Zac? What do you mean that's the first time they've ever done a crossbar? They've done millions of crossbar locks. And it turns out they haven't. So I feel like I came from a universe where Civivi was doing tons of crossbar locks and all of a sudden they're not. So that was the first time that I was convinced that I just fell out of one universe and into another. That blew my mind. I literally sat there in silence.
contemplating my reality. Apparently, this was Civivi's first crossbar lock. And, on his video, he says they knocked it out of the park. And I agree with him. They really knocked it out of the park. Sorry, you're going to hear the garage door open. My wife's coming home. But this feels really good. The Omega springs are not high tension. It's kind of like medium. But something I want to point out, something that always bothers me with, like, for example, Benchmade's Axis lock. It's very wobbly. Now, I can move this, but the up and down or like the wobble play is very, very minimal. It feels very crisp and even. Not crisp, that's the wrong word. It feels very accurate, very precision. It's very easy to disengage and very smooth to disengage. There's no stick or anything like that. It just feels like they wanted to create a perfect crossbar lock the first go around, and they did. It's one of the better feeling crossbar locks that I've ever experienced. And that's saying something because every company, it seems like, has a crossbar lock, apparently, except for Civivi, apparently, in this weird universe. As much as I like it, I really wish that they would up the tension, because I think that they would take a system that feels really good and make it feel perfect. It doesn't need that to function, and truthfully, they did do a great job. It's plenty strong. I never had issues with this engagement. They did a great job with this, right? I also wish, unless I'm mistaken, this did not come with additional Omega springs. Civivi, you guys should definitely put an extra set. If you guys are going to start doing the crossbar lock thing, you should definitely put an extra set of Omega springs. Take a note from Kunwu and put an extra set in there that's a higher tension. That way, everybody's got two sets and everybody can have the tension that they want. There is no way that that's expensive to do, and tons of companies do it. So I think that would be a really, really good idea. But this feels really, really good, and the thumb studs are also shaped nicely. They remind me a lot of, where is it? It's like a smaller version of what's on the Ontario Rat, which is actually one of my favorite thumbs. You can see what I mean here. It's domed off heavily at the top. That center cap is not a point or like a peak or a pyramid. Zabenza. Sorry, it's a weird cough. But it's rounded, and that makes it really, really easy to interact with. I can actually reverse flick this, no problem. But I think the higher tension Omega springs might assist with a better kind of build up before release as well. But it is, make no mistake, it's very, very good. And the knife does run on bearings. It is ridiculously smooth. So action good is basically what I'm saying there. Let's go ahead and do carry profile thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's about the same, but the scales are also contoured. I really like this, this grayish. That's what it looks like to me. It's probably black micarta, right? But it kind of looks like gray micarta. It's nice to the touch. It looks nice up close. It feels good, right? For as small a knife as this is, what I don't like is a small knife that's very, very thin and very 90 degrees at the edge. That just feels awful. This does not feel like that. It's actually a tall profile. For a knife of this size, contoured scales. And there's a lot here that allows me to get a good grip on the knife and have it feel like it's actually filling my hand. It's not something I'm going to, drop, or that's going to slip out of my hand, or that just feels generally uncomfortable. It actually did really well in this department. But it's got an incredibly simple handle profile. We've seen it a million times, and the reason we've seen it a million times is because it works, right? So anyways, yeah, very, very comfortable as far as your carry profile goes. In the pocket, it's obviously going to be nice and compact. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. Sorry, I realized we were kind of slipping into the ergonomics section of this review. We got to do this part first. Lengthwise, not as long as even the Para 3 and not as tall. So my experience carrying this knife, which was not a crazy amount. It looks like it. We'll get to this here in a second. It looks like I beat the crap out of this thing. I didn't, right? But I carried it for a few days, and it was incredibly comfortable, compact. It wasn't small enough or lightweight enough that I forgot that it was there. It just felt like I was carrying a good, intentionally compact designed knife. So yeah, carry profile is good. I carry a lot of other items on my person daily that are far larger than this. Let's go ahead and weigh it. So what are we looking at for materials here? In this case, we're looking at micarta. There is another version. It might be black G10. And then it's got the stonewash blade. And then I think there's one or two more maybe. But they're all going to be relatively the same weight. So the weight on this guy, and we also have full steel liners. They're not nested. And then we have a thin 14C28N blade. I'm going to guess this weighs slightly over 3 ounces. No, I'm wrong. Slightly under. Wow. I was way off there. 2.6 ounces. So definitely ultra lightweight. And the ratios are also very, very good. I think maybe it's just the height, like the profile height, that makes me think that it's bigger. It's like I said, the presence, right? It's got me all mentally messed up. The presence of this knife is one of that of one. It's, how do I say that? Is that of one that would be heavier? Okay. The balance is nice. Right behind the pivot for sure. So feels good. Let's go. I missed it a bunch of times there. We'll get to that. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness here real quick. Probably about 85 thousandths. Pretty darn thin, which is a good thing. Did well, yeah. 83 thousandths or so. Okay, let's do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. I believe this is the same as most other Civivis. That's going to be T8 for everything, which is good. I love that. T8, T6 for the pocket clip, a couple of screws over here, filler tab, ambidextrous locking system. You should have ambidextrous clip mounting positions. Zach knows that. So no surprise that lefties can enjoy this the same way. This will be very simple to take apart. If you've never taken apart a knife with a crossbar lock and messed with Omega springs, it can be a little frustrating, but it's far from impossible. Tape the blade off. That would be my recommendation. Make sure you've got a magnet or something that can keep all the hardware in one place. As long as you've got the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. All right, meat and potatoes time. Why does the blade look like this? So this is Civivi's black wash finish, and I literally was sitting in the garage, and I was like, I wonder how well this finish would hold up if I cut an aluminum can. And so I did. And it turns out it doesn't hold up well. That's just the black wash finish. This is not a DLC coating or a PVD coating or, what's that? Is it Cerakote? It's nothing like that. I mean, and even those, like the DLC will hold up well, but even the PVD and the Cerakote are not going to be, spectacular. No big deal. If you don't want your knife to look like this after a while, then just get the stone washed one. No big deal. But the blade was wonderful. Using this to break down some cardboard boxes and just cut into things in general. It's a nice shape, and I also like this sort of reverse tanto. I'm going to call it that. You can arrest me. I have never been arrested completely by the Blade Shape Police. They've been after me for years, right? The number of offenses, there's definitely multiple warrants out for my arrest in terms of the Blade Shape Police and the damage that I have done to their name. But I'm going to call this reverse tanto. Maybe I'm right, There's plenty of belly, nice and thin. Civivi always does a good job with their factory edges. This was just a straightforward, super utilitarian blade. I like these reverse tanto blades where the tip is down a bit because I like to get my finger up on the edge and do draw cuts because I do a lot of stuff like that day to day. I don't use a knife in any special way. I don't need a special knife. In fact, I could get away with a blade half the length of this. I am the most normal, basic dude. Like, I don't do anything crazy with a knife. I just carry a knife and use it for simple tasks. So this worked plenty well for me. And it was just really, really nice overall in the pocket. But I do really like the blade shape. Where the cutting edge starts, I mean, the thumb studs are essentially, like, if they're in the cutting path, it's like a 1/16 of an inch. It's like nothing, right? But it felt good, and it felt like I could really get a good grip on this without feeling like I was going to run my index finger up on the edge. Now, I wear an XL glove, which doesn't mean that my hands are truly XL, right? Just so that you guys can get an idea, compare your hands with mine. Where my pinky lands is right here, and he talked about this on his video. Personally, I like to get a 4-finger grip on a knife, and I don't love when my pinky is on like an end ramp, but I'll take it versus a 3-finger. So if you buy XXL gloves, you're a 3-finger grip or worse here, right? If your hands are the size of mine, your pinky's going to be slipping off the end. If you wear a size large glove or medium glove, you're going to be real happy with this. It's going to be super comfortable. But even if your hands are like mine, it's pretty good. I'll tell you something that he did that I love. He put a small clip on it. Thank you. It's a small knife. We don't need a big doofy ding-dong clip on this thing. I'll never understand knife designers who want like these big, long, crazy pocket clips on their knives, but especially when we have a smaller knife design and they got this water slide coming off the back of it. It makes no sense to me. This allows for the small space that you have for your hands on the knife to be comfortable, because the clip's not digging into this part of your hand. It's back here, right? Which for me, at least, is more comfortable. You can choke up a little bit. I'd be real careful, right? Just maybe the tip of your finger here. But you can if you want to. The jimping is functional. I found myself wishing a couple of times it was just a bit further, but not bad, right? I mean, there's nothing really to complain about there. It's good. Like I said, we have mounting positions for the pocket clip on both sides, so that's great. No lanyard hole, but is there a lanyard bar? No. Zach's like me. He's got it out for lanyard people. No lanyards. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to attach a lanyard to this. I don't know why I think that's so funny, because Civivi usually has a lanyard bar, and he was like, nope. That just makes me laugh. Probably not. It's probably not something you really thought about, right? I mean, I don't attach lanyards to my knife. I guess if you really wanted to, you could put one here on the pocket clip. Maybe that's why that's there, right? But anyways, yeah, just really nice with the clip design. Mine's pretty tight, but in and out of the pocket, it was super easy. No issues or anything like that. Couple of standoffs back here. We have no shouldering. I don't know why that surprises me, but no shouldering there, no big deal. No blade play up, down, left to right, and no locks. So that's really nice. Civivi did a great job. I mean, I feel like they're pretty late to the game to like introduce crossbar locks, but I will say this: if they keep doing it, they clearly know how to do it. I think that they're, I like the high tension crossbar locks, and I also like to see, because Omega springs break. I've never had one break, but I know that they do. So I think it would be a good idea for them to include more if they continue to do stuff like this in the future. Very easy to disengage. There is no pivot lash or anything like that. Smooth and consistent in here. Not an incredibly strong event horizon, as I call it, holding this in. That's just the tension of the Omega springs. But then again, on this size of knife, right, I don't know that it is really that big of a deal. Every now and then, because of the size of this, and if your hands are smaller than mine, you won't find this to be an issue, but every now and then I miss the thumb stud, and it's because where the knife is in my hand relative to the thumb stud and like my thumb's ability to engage with it. On a bigger knife like this, the 80-20.5, it's in exactly the right spot. On this, I'm just slightly high sometimes. So if your hands are the same size as mine, you might miss it every now and then. About 1 in 20 times I went to flip it, I would miss. Maybe 1 in 30, not that big of a deal. And here's the other thing. If you're dedicated to a knife like this, eventually you're going to adapt to it. So you're just going to know, before I deploy it, the knife needs to be further up in my hand before I do that. But I actually did it here on camera, which is why I wanted to address it. But anyways, the centering, I never adjusted anything on this knife the entire time that I've had it, and it stayed perfect. I mean, it's great. I wouldn't expect anything less from Civivi. It doesn't look like a hyper special knife, and it technically isn't. I don't think Zach was like, I'm going to make something nobody's made before. No, he did what a lot of people do who get the opportunity to design a knife. He made a knife that was ideal for him and also, ideal for a lot of people. I mean, he did make an everyman knife. We have a lot of everyman knives. This one is probably one of the better everyman knives for sure. And I did enjoy carrying it. It does a lot of things right, and I can't really complain about anything. And me personally, for me, slightly longer, right? But there is no perfect knife for anybody, right? This really is a knife that's exceptionally good for a huge range of people. Most pocket knives are made for certain people. So this one does a good job of that. And especially with the price tag being $56 at base, yeah, that was good. With the 14C28N and the fact that this is a knife that's on the smaller side, but not a tiny knife, not a micro knife, it's good, right? The materials, 14C28N, the micarta, the G10, it's just good. So this doesn't really blow my socks off, but again, I don't think that he was trying to like create something that's never been created before. It's neat to see Civivi's first crossbar lock, and it's neat that it's on a knife that's really, really good. I would really like to see this exact same thing, but bigger. I mean, I think that making a larger one alongside the smaller one would be really fun, especially for people who like the straightforward, because this is a tool. Like, man, you look at this, and this is clearly a tool. It would be nice for people, with my size hands or bigger, that really want that full grip. Again, I'm not slipping. I'm not off the edge. My pinky's just right at the back of it there. One that's maybe like, I would say 7.5 to 8 inches. Like, that would be awesome to build, to go alongside this. But I do think that this knife is very, very good the way that it is. It is easily a recommendable knife. It's also a budget knife, being under $75. So this is going to go on 2 playlists. It's going to go on my cheap knives I like playlist, and it's also going to go on my most recommended knives playlist. This is highly recommendable. It's great for literally anything. It doesn't really matter who you are, left or right-handed. You travel a lot, you don't, right? You're somebody who's outside a lot. You're somebody like me who's inside a lot and doesn't really use knives for anything super crazy. It doesn't really matter. It's just a good knife. The cutting profile, the edge geometry, all of that, it's a good straightforward tool. So yeah, thumbs up from me. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.